Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to our next session on the topic of karma with His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Very grateful to have him again with us. Since
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, welcome. Since he's such a knowledgeable monk and mentor in our community. So last time we had spoken about karma in a very basic way. And Prabhu, you have agreed to kindly recap briefly what we spoke about last time. And then we're going to continue on this time, building on those concepts, because there can be some, confusion and misconceptions, specifically around the idea of mercy, compassion in the face of karma. I'm hearing a little bit of an
Yes.
echo, Prabhu. Are you listening? Are you hearing the echo as well?
Let me see.
Let me just turn
Is it
off your
better
mic
now?
while I'm speaking. I'm just going to try that for now. Okay,
Okay.
sorry about
Is it
that.
somewhat better now?
Maybe. Let me, when I speak, I'll know.
Okay.
Okay, so today we wanted to
Sure.
focus on how to understand karma in an empowering way for us, so that we don't kind of lose sight of the goal of karma. Why does karma exist, and how to not become a little bit maybe jaded by other people's situations and our own situation. But sometimes we can become a bit apathetic, a bit lacking compassion if we look at everyone in with this eye, with the lens of karma. Sometimes people criticize this
Hmm.
idea of karma as being, oh well, then that's how the caste system, and that's how there's a lot of discrimination. Sometimes that's it's a misconception and it's perceived like that. So we're going to peel some layers today. I welcome you, Prabhu, to maybe just recap what we spoke about last time, and then start with this idea
Yes,
of
certainly. Thank you.
thank you.
So, broadly, I think we discussed 4 points last time. That first was that when we talk about karma, what exactly do we mean by it?
Mhm.
So, karma is sometimes it becomes confusing because it can also refer to the action that we are doing, the reaction we are
Mhm.
getting, can also refer to the system of karma, action reaction, and then it can also refer to one particular kind of action where we have karma, that is good karma, then we have vikarma, which is bad karma. It can also
Mhm.
there be akarma, karma which brings no reactions. So in that context, then now why do we even need to consider the idea of karma at all? So because we see in the world that we all act to get some results.
Sorry, it's frozen a little bit. I wonder if you can hear.
But sometimes we don't get the results that we expect. So not only the opposite of what we expect. Yeah. Am I better now? Clearer?
It's come back now. So if we could just maybe repeat that
Yeah.
last bit, please.
Yeah. So why do we need to even consider karma? Because we all act in the world seeking some results. And if those
Right.
results don't come, then naturally it bewilders us. Sometimes we get even the opposite of what we expect. So karma gives us a broader framework to understand things. So in that
Right.
connection, we discussed how the action connection between karma and phala is not just one-to-one correspondence. There is karma
Hmm.
plus daiva plus kala will lead to phala. So karma is the actions that we do, our endeavors, our duties. Daiva is destiny, kismat, fate, predestination that we say. So just like if a farmer has to plow the land and sow the seeds, that's karma. And the rains have to come in the right time and right quantity, that's daiva. And then the kala is we have to wait till the harvesting season comes. Then the
Right.
crops will come. So karma, daiva, kala will lead to phala. And then sometimes we may see that I am doing my karma, but I'm not getting the phala. That's because presently daiva is unfavorable. So accept it, and then we can tolerate it. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't do our karma at all. That is, so when Krishna talks about be detached from the fruits of your work, that doesn't mean don't care, don't set goals, don't care for the fruits. It's just that recognize that your karma alone doesn't lead to phala, so don't get so worked up about it. So one
Mm,
extreme
right.
is Daivavad, which holds that everything is destined. What is the use of our doing any work at all? The other extreme
Mm,
is Karmavad, which is my work alone will produce the results. but we need a balance between the two. And with that balance, we can move forward more effectively. And then ultimately, I discussed that if we are practicing bhakti and turning toward Krishna uh, through bhakti practices, then no matter what our daiva may bring to us, we can find a higher shelter. We can find an
Mhm.
anchor. So the by our destiny, by our various situations we face, we may actually get a lot of sufferings which may be like waves coming into our us when we are in the ocean. But if those waves are not sweep us away, then we need an anchor.
Mhm.
And that's why we say that whatever karma may get us to, Krishna will get us through. Whatever karma may get us to,
Through
Krishna will get
Krishna
us
will
through.
get us through. Beautiful. Thank you so much. You're well known, well world renowned uh, in your ability to be able to concisely and precisely summarize hours long worth of discussion. So thank you so much for summarizing so wonderfully the last conversation we had about karma. So recently, there's been this topic. I'm sure you've heard of Stephen Fry in the UK. He's a well-known atheist, and he has
Yes.
quoted famously that I don't believe in God, but if I ever met him, I would I would say, "How dare you? How dare you put bone cancer in young babies, in children? What gives you the right?" He's so angry at God because the conception, in especially in Abrahamic religions, maybe, or where they don't believe in reincarnation, or they don't understand the concept of our own action, they tend to be, you must accept then the idea that it's kind of God's random arrangement in the beginning of life. When I hear
Hmm.
his statement like this towards God, I realize that's because they don't understand reincarnation, and it's such a sad thing because really many people, as soon as the suffering comes, we tend to blame God or someone around us. First
Yes.
thing to do is to so this idea of random chance of some baby being born with a terminal disease and so much pain and suffering for no reason, in some sense, that
Yes. That's true.
so sorry,
Yeah,
I
I
know we're
understand your
talking about
point.
something else, but right, if
No,
we
no,
can
I understand. This
begin.
is very important. It's good you brought this up.
Hmm.
So, I would respond to something like this. First of all, it's true. It's very painful. It can raise questions about very the basis of fairness in existence, and the idea of a God, a good God will naturally be questioned. So I understand the question is entirely reasonable.
Hmm.
Having
Right.
said that the question is entirely reasonable, we need to move forward a little bit and consider one important point, that let's say that we say there's no God for argument's sake.
Hmm.
That's the atheist beginning premise, that
Right.
atheism begins with there's no God. And then we talk about why bad things happen to good people,
Hmm.
or why innocent, why babies who have done nothing are suffering. Okay, then the question comes as that, why, let's turn the question around. Let's assume there is no God. Why should bad things not happen to good people?
Hmm.
That's
Right.
unfair.
If it was just completely random chance, right? That's a very fair
Then why
question.
would we even have that question? Why would we even have that
Ah.
question? So the
Yes.
very fact that we have an innate sense of fairness, and to a
Beautiful.
significant extent, things do work fairly. I'm not saying
Hmm.
always, but overall, we can reasonably say that, if somebody has a car accident, it could be that some drunk driver drove over them. It could
Hmm.
also be that they drove irresponsibly.
Hmm.
It could be that, so generally speaking, there is some cause effect connection that we know. So
Yes.
most of the times we are able to see cause effect causal connections.
Hmm.
And that is why when we are not able to see it, that appears so objectionable to us.
Hmm.
So what we do is we need to expand our framework. So this is a little scientific, because since you quoted Stephen Fry, I will give this example. In the history of science, when Newton came up with the law of gravity and the laws of motion, that seemed to be the bedrock foundation of physics. And they thought
Right.
now we'll be able to explain the whole universe with that. But then as science started going deeper and deeper at the microscopic level and to subatomic particles, and as it started going further and further to the universal level, macrocosmic level, at
Right.
both levels, Newton's laws didn't work.
Exactly.
Fundamental particles don't follow Newton's laws, and
Hmm.
celestial objects don't follow Newton's laws.
Right.
So now, did scientists say because of that that oh, Newton's laws don't work?
Hmm.
No, we don't reject Newton's laws. So what happened is they tried to expand the framework within which Newton's laws like a special case. So Newton's
Right.
laws do work at a particular level, but when they don't work, we don't reject the theory. We expand the theory. So now Einstein came up with the general theory of relativity, and within
Hmm.
that, Newton's laws are considered to be a subset. They work at our normal observational level, but at
Hmm.
very small and very big levels, they don't work. So
Exactly.
similarly, at a normal level, we do see, if say if any mother has a kid who comes back home and the kid's clothes are very dirty, he says, what were you doing? He says, no, they just became dirty by chance. No,
Hmm.
we don't function like that. Nobody can function like that for that matter, isn't it?
Such a
So
good
it's
point.
like, so we do accept cause effect connection, and when cause effect connection doesn't make sense for us, that time
Hmm.
do we reject cause effect connection? Okay, Stephen Fry may say that what kind of God will do that? But
Hmm.
then is he ready to accept the point that there is no cause effect connection at all? They say no. They may say no, no, there is a cause effect connection. Science talks about cause effect connection, but science doesn't talk about human experiences. Science can't explain, literally speaking. Even science can't explain why a particular person has bone cancer. Now, can you go back
Hmm.
into genetics and say, okay, this child was born with this? Well, sometimes you can't find anything in the parents also.
Hmm.
Why did this person get it? Genetically, see, there are many, we can have broad explanations of why a particular disease comes. Okay, this is the cause of the disease and this is the cure for it. But why did this disease come to this person and not to this person?
Right.
In the same house, with the pandemic going on, in the same house, there may be five people and three people get infected. One of them gets very severely infected, one of them gets lightly infected, two people don't get infected at all.
Hmm.
Why the difference? So now I'm not saying that science doesn't offer us an explanation. It does. But it doesn't explain all the observable data exhaustively. So we need a
Right.
broader framework.
Limited. Right.
So what happens is the broader framework is from the perspective of karma, that there is cause effect correlation, and there's a significant amount of cause effect correlation in our observation. But
There's
there will
enough.
be some amount of cause effect correlation that may go beyond our observation. It's just like when a child is a child has a the parents have a garden, the child is sowing something in the garden. Now sometimes, if you show grains, you can see the grains coming up within 3-4 months. Hmm. But if they sow a mango tree or a mango seed, that may take 20 years to give mangoes, depending on which part of the world we are in, which kind of mangoes they are. So
Right.
now something comes in 2 months, something takes 20 years. In both cases, seeds are being sown, but the time frame will vary. So
Hmm.
similarly, our actions lead to results, but they may have a different time frame. So okay, if we let's say that no, no, this is just you can't explain one thing, so you have come up with another explanation. Now you can't
Hmm.
explain this, so like often the atheistic argument is that to explain one unexplainable, you come up with another thing which is also not explainable. Okay, how do you know this is true? Let's see what options do we have for explaining, say, such iniquities as
Hmm.
terrible disease in small children. See, one option is chance. It's just random. It's just random. Now, if it's just random, hardly anyone functions like that. None of us function that everything is by random. Now, if everything were random, science itself would not function because science presumes there is cause and effect, and we try to find a cause and cause effect correlation. On top of
So
that,
basis of scientific technique. Exactly.
so that's the first thing. If it's a chance, now nobody functions like that in real life. And if it were chance, then what does it mean basically? The universe is reduced to a lottery, and
Hmm.
some people are just the lucky winners, and some people are the unlucky losers, and that's all there is. So this is actually a very gloomy way of living. And what happens is, if we accept this view of living, the sufferings of life are still there. They're not going to go away.
Right.
Whether I'm atheist or I'm a theist, the sufferings are still there. Atheism does not remove the sufferings of life, it only removes the hope that the sufferings have some purpose.
Right. Beautiful
It does
point.
not remove the sufferings. Either way, if my child, my child has cancer, has some terrible disease, they have the disease, whether I'm atheist or theist. But at least
Mm,
if I have some faith in God, then I have some hope that maybe this suffering has some purpose. I don't know what the purpose is, but at least the hope is there. In
mm.
atheism, there is no hope. So that's one thing.
Right.
Hmm?
It's a
So now,
huge
if you
point.
move
Very,
forward,
very powerful
yeah.
point. Go on.
So now somebody said, no, actually, you are just being utopian. There is no hope. You are imagining hope where there is no hope.
Mm,
Okay, that could be possible. But as I said, we don't function like that. We always try to look for cause effect connections everywhere. Now, that's how science develops. That's how we normally function in day to day life. That's how we look for accountability in our relationships. So,
right.
to say that what is happening is meaningless, how it becomes like that is if we accept this, no, it's all random. It's like, science often asks, accuses religion, why do you do this irrational ritual? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why do you worship this deity? Why do you do that? But then what happens is, what is the end result of the atheistic worldview? Now, I'm not equating science with atheism. Science is simply a tool for learning about reality. And
Mm,
currently, science is largely run by people who are atheists,
right.
not entirely. And that's why science is sometimes seen as a tool for atheism. But
Mm,
science and atheism are two different things. So all that,
yes.
none of what I'm saying is against science. Just saying
Right.
that atheism is a school, it's a philosophy, it's an ideology, and science is a tool, which
Right.
atheists are prominently using. So the problem here is that when we say that, they say, okay, this ritual doesn't make sense, that ritual doesn't make sense. Okay, but within the atheistic worldview, ultimately nothing makes sense. Life itself doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
We are born, we exist for some
It's the
time, we struggle through life, and then we die. And
absolutely.
even atheists are very, very proud of scientific discoveries and scientific advancement. See, we understood this and we understood that and we understood that. So it's
Mhm.
like we're proud of finding small islands of meaning while claiming that while drowning in an ocean of meaninglessness.
Right.
An ocean of meaninglessness.
It's such irony. It's so ironical.
Yeah.
I,
So
so,
that's the atheistic worldview. So yes, we may not be able to make sense of some things, but we have innate hunger for meaning. And atheism certainly
mm,
doesn't. Atheism may offer us some islands of meaning, but
mm,
ultimately we drown in the ocean of meaninglessness. What
wow.
theism offers us is, theism does tell us, yeah, there are some areas you could say they are like marshes where it's of meaninglessness. But theism
Yeah.
says ultimately there is land and you
Yeah.
can go toward that land. So we could
Yeah.
say the atheistic worldview is islands of meaninglessness within an islands of meaning within an ocean of meaninglessness. The theistic worldview is, you could say, a vast landmass of meaning with some patches of meaninglessness. Yeah, I can't make
Right.
sense of this, I can't make sense of that, I can't say. But overall, atheism says yes, the universe is orderly. Mm.
Right.
But within this, we need to qualify. See, what happens
Mm,
is the mainstream theistic worldview in today's world is comes from the Abrahamic religions. And in the
right.
Abrahamic religions, they generally don't accept reincarnation. And
Right.
because of that, what happens is these kind of cases where a small child is born with terrible diseases, they are just unexplainable. You can say that, oh, it is God's will and it is God's justice. One of my friends what happened was that when he said, why does God do something like this? Small children suffering. So he said, God justice is different from ours. That was the answer he got from his priest. And then he said, God justice may be different from ours, but it should be better than ours. It should be better than ours, not worse than ours. He said, if a small child is suffering
Not
helplessly,
worse than ours. Exactly.
what kind of justice is that? So in that sense, even in the Christian tradition, there's the book of Old Testament, there's the book of Job, where Job is a
Mm,
person who goes through a lot of suffering, but ultimately, even God doesn't give answer why he's suffering, because without considering previous lives, it's very difficult to explain.
It's
So I'll give
not.
a
It's
metaphor
not
for this
possible.
now to illustrate this point. I'll give a metaphor. Cricket is quite popular in India as well as in England. So
Yeah.
say suppose there's a cricket match going on, and somebody looks at the scoreboard and they see, hey, we just started this match, but this team score is there's 0 runs and 7 wickets out. Hey, what's going on? Starting itself, or this team score is already 200 at the starting only.
Mm.
This doesn't make sense. So if the
Yeah.
scoreboard the scoreboard seems to be independent of the match being played. See, the match
Exactly.
has not started, and still there is a arbitrary bias in the scoreboard. This doesn't make sense.
Nobody would
That
accept it.
this team just came into bat and their score is already 200.
Mm.
How does that happen? So one explanation could be that the scoreboard is just working by chance, whatever comes up over there.
Huh.
That could be one explanation. The
Yeah.
second, this is the atheistic theory. Irrespective of how we are functioning, this life seems to be working randomly.
Mm.
The other is the other is that this team just came into bat, but the score was so good for this team and the score is so bad for this team. You could say the scorekeeper is arbitrary. There is a
Mm.
scorekeeper, but the scorekeeper is arbitrary. Where the scorekeeper arbitrarily favors some people and not and disfavors some people. The third explanation
Right.
could be that this is a test match and this is a second innings going on.
Right.
So if
Leftover from
one
the
team in
previous
the
day.
beginning has a 200 lead, that could be because that team has batted before earlier better.
Mm. Exactly.
So some people, they are born with very comfortable situations. Some people are born with terrible situations. Like the starting score is different. So we have three explanations. One is chance. The other is you could use the word divine caprice or divine arbitrariness. Now, if I have to
Apathy. Yeah.
you have to believe that God arbitrarily decides this child will be
Mm.
born sick, this child will be born healthy, this child will be born poor, this child will be born wealthy. If the only choices were between arbitrary chance and arbitrary God, many
Right.
people will choose
Would prefer
arbitrary chance
arbitrary chance.
because
It's like the
how can
movie.
I?
I'm sure. I'm sure, Prabhu, you don't
Yeah,
know about this movie, but in the Avengers, Thanos, he's the main god,
yeah,
and
I've heard
he
about it. Yeah.
arbitrarily decides I'm going to kill off half the population because there's too many people, and he's the most powerful god. I'm just going to kill them randomly, and that's his. And when you see that clearly, he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy in the movie. The
Hmm.
whole world is fighting against this maniac god that would do this, so leaving,
True, true.
like, I like your point of saying that random chance is more preferable than a random god.
Yes, because at least I don't have to worship chance. On one side, God is random, and then I am expected to devote myself to that random God. How can I do
Exactly.
that?
Why would
This
I
is
do
going to be
that?
unreal.
Exactly.
So, if
Ah,
these are the only two options, then atheism would be a natural, logical choice. But there is a
exactly.
third understanding. Third
Right.
understanding is that this is a second innings, or we can say it's not a second, multiple innings. In cricket, you don't have
Mm,
multiple innings, but
right.
in our soul's journey, there are multiple innings.
Right. Right. Right.
So, because of this, we can't. If we have to see the most sensible explanation,
Mhm.
or you could say the most pragmatically empowering explanation,
Mm,
that okay, why did I get a child like this?
mm,
I could say that, oh, I am just unlucky. That's one way of looking at it. I could say just God is angry with me. Well,
mm,
okay, this is okay. Maybe there is something from the past life's karma which has to be cleared. And at
mm.
least what this karma philosophy does is that it tells me to some extent at least the reins of the chariot of my life are in my hands.
It's
I may
empowering.
have been, yeah, it's
Yes.
empowering.
Yes.
Yes. So, okay, maybe I did something negative in the past because of which I got some negative results. But if I choose wisely now, if I act
Mm,
positively now, I can create a better future. Otherwise, the other two plans may go against me and I'll be
I can
ruined.
create a better future.
Or maybe God will go against me and I'll be ruined.
Exactly.
So, in that sense, let's
Mm,
put the past aside. If we look at the future itself, all of us have to live with the go on with life irrespective of whatever situations come in our life. So, from a purely pragmatic perspective, which is the worldview that is most empowering for us? Hmm?
Right.
Which is the worldview? Is it that everything is by chance? If a child is going to school
Mm.
and you tell the child that the child has got very poor marks, you continue studying hard, but you know the kind of marks you get, it'll be by chance only. How much you study, it's not going to matter. So you tell the child, you study very hard, but you know the teacher is biased, teacher is opinionated. Whatever marks the teacher gives, that will be independent of your studies.
Right.
Where
Why would the child study?
exactly?
Ah.
So I wouldn't go so far as to say that no karma is the best explanation or the most satisfactory explanation. It is very difficult when a person is going through that pain of some terrible injustice coming in our lives.
Mm.
But what I would say is that ultimately this problem, which is called in philosophical circles the problem of evil. No,
Mm.
we never have a completely satisfactory explanation for this.
Mm.
But what we can have is the least unsatisfactory explanation.
Mm.
It's not that
Wonderful.
when somebody is going through suffering like that, somebody has a child like that, just saying that it is because of karma, okay, to some extent it might be intellectually satisfying. Okay, maybe it's like that. But still, emotionally, the heart will still be hurt, heart will still be pained.
Right.
So I won't say that this is like a magic wand which explains everything.
Mm.
But at least you can say, even if somebody doesn't find the explanation fully coherent, among the options available, we can definitely say this is the least unsatisfactory explanation,
Wonderful. And it's a great
at the
segue
very
into
least.
the next
Yes,
part
please.
of the question that we already explained before, that karma, at least it has a purpose. And it, you're saying it's not just karma, it's not just your action, it's also daiva and kala, and then finally you get the result. So you're saying it's not a complete explanation of everything that we see. The reality that we perceive is not simply A to Z karma. So it's so
Yeah,
how
what
can
I
we
put this aside is, yeah, it's not it's just A to Z karma. It is that we may not know we may never come to know the A to Z's of karma.
right.
But that doesn't mean it is not a
Sorry,
reasonably satisfactory
you're
explanation.
back.
You see,
It's there's a small
so
lag.
one of
It
the
keeps
common
cutting off.
questions that people ask is okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now
Yeah,
or still
I
same?
can hear you, but the screen, the
Okay,
video keeps.
it's frozen, is it? Okay,
Now it's fine.
is it better now? So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. So if we look at when I said that it's not all karma, and that's not exactly what I meant. What I meant was that because we do not know the details of what a
Right.
particular person did in a particular life, so in that sense it at our level of cognition it's not a complete explanation.
Right.
But in one sense, we are finite beings and we have to work with the information that we have.
Hmm.
In fact, this is one of the existential predicaments of humanity, that we have to constantly take big decisions on finite information. You could even say insufficient information.
Right.
Say right now we are facing the pandemic.
Mm.
Now, which medicines will work for the pandemic? Is the vaccine going to work or not? Is a booster shot going to work or not? Do we need
Mm.
vaccines for the children? We just
Mm.
don't. It's such a crisis that we don't have time to do the exhaustive research. We keep time for multiple years and then come to a
Right.
decision. For that matter, so many areas in our life. Say if somebody decides to get married, now how much
Mm.
can you really know about the other person before you
Mm.
get married? When you choose
Right.
a career,
Right.
how much can we know about that career? We say this career is very promising right now, but maybe 5 years down the line, by the time I graduate, this career may not be that promising.
Mm.
So, in general, in no area of life do we ever get a comprehensive explanation for everything. So,
So
in
true.
science, this is called as the problem of resolution. The problem of resolution means that how precise is the information that I need for functioning.
Mm.
For functioning in my life, say if my car is showing its car speed is I'm moving at say 70 miles per hour. So now Is it okay if it is 70 point not 1?
Right.
If I had a meter which was going to show me 70 point not 1, how big would the meter be? And then at what resolution do I stop?
Mm.
So,
Is
we
there a
all
purpose for it? Right.
yeah, so
The
it's like, how should I put it, that no, we evaluate a particular design in terms of its purpose.
right.
That means the purpose of my the speedometer on the car is not to give me a precise speed down to maybe 10 decimals below zero or after the
Mm.
point. Okay, I
Mm.
just don't want to go beyond the speed limit. I want to make sure that I have control over my car.
Mm.
So, like that, in every area of life, we operate with a certain level of information.
Right.
Nobody can have complete comprehensive information of anything at all. So that's just the reality of our existence. So similarly, with respect to karma, we don't have a complete understanding of, say, which action, which life led to which particular positive or negative situation in this life. But overall, we understand some principles, and those principles can empower us.
That's really a good point, even for me to hear, because many times you try to listen to even Bhagavad stories, even Hindu scriptural stories. You'll hear stories that this happened in this life, and then this happened in the next life, and sometimes you think it maybe doesn't match up to our expectation of what it's meant to be. It doesn't seem balanced sometimes, and it's nice to reflect on this, that karma is not fully graspable. It's not meant to be that we dissect every single angle uh, to the minutia, so that we can feel satisfied in ourselves that, oh yes, now it all balances out perfectly. So it's an important acceptance in life. It's almost like a bit of humility, that okay, we have to accept that there's some explanation, maybe not the complete explanation. And maybe that can help us
Right.
into the next phase of this conversation on how to then therefore remove ourselves from just being able blindly, or maybe apathetically stating that everything is because of your karma. Usually we kind of box people in according to their karmas. And
Yes.
the tendency can be to become a little bit uh, you know
Or
uncompassionate,
pathetic,
unkind,
heartless. Yeah.
apathetic. So it's very, very
Yes. True.
very an issue that I find that some people would find as a criticism of the karmic theory.
Agreed. Agreed. Unfortunately that has happened. But we need to always separate. See the philosophy from its application, not separate completely, but we can't always evaluate the merits of a philosophy by evaluating the ways in which it has been applied.
Hmm.
If that were the sole criteria, then you can say that why not apply
True.
it to science?
Hmm.
Why not apply to technology? Say, we can say WhatsApp is used to incite riots, the internet is used to is you as internet was
So true.
used by terrorist organizations to
Yeah.
spread hate. It
Or
is used
social
to
media
spread so
causes
many.
people to commit suicide. Yeah.
Yeah. So do we evaluate the merit of the technology based on its performance itself? We never do that.
Hmm.
If we say that, say, if we had not invented the weapons of mass destruction, the
Right.
or even technologically advanced weapons, no, neither
Like
World War
COVID.
One nor World War Two would have neither World War Two would have been that bad.
Right.
Even terrorists, say then 9/11, they attacked they brought down the twin towers.
Hmm.
If we didn't have airplanes, they wouldn't have been able to
Right.
bring down the twin towers.
Right.
So we never blame technology. We say no, it's the ideology of the people who did those things. We blame the
Mm.
Nazis. We blame religious extremism, whatever it is. So technology is a tool.
Mm.
How you apply a tool is up to people. So similarly, ultimately, philosophy is also a tool. You can have the most meaningful philosophy, which can be applied in the most self-serving way. The most
Right.
meaningful philosophy, the most, say, for example, medical knowledge can actually do so much good to people.
Mm.
But sometimes, even especially when medical knowledge mixed with the pharma industry, then they may not let certain cures which are cheap and widely available spread.
Right.
because that'll interrupt their money. So
Mm.
does that make medicine itself bad? Does that mean medical industry itself bad?
No.
Not necessarily. So so similarly, yes, let's look at the karma philosophy and then look at how it has been applied. So one misapplication could be that when a person is a victim, person is suffering, then you just tell them that you are suffering because of your past karma. Just accept
Mm.
it and live with it.
Mm.
And now, yes, that could be an application, but is this kind of application ever done in the scriptures?
Mm.
If we look at it, if we look at the Mahabharata, say Draupadi is grievously dishonored by
Mm.
Duryodhan, by Karna, by Dushasan. Now, after that whole incident, does anyone tell Draupadi it was all
Sorry, you've
your
frozen
karma?
again.
There is a very important balancing point. Can you hear me now?
Sorry, I lost you there in the middle. Just if you could repeat the
Yeah.
last
So I
sentence.
said that nobody says when Draupadi is suffering that it's her karma, because
Mm.
within that same tradition, there is the philosophy of karma, but there is also an emphasis on dharma. Dharma
Mm.
is duty, the right thing to do. So whenever somebody is suffering, at that time, the emphasis is not on what was their karma because of which they are suffering. The emphasis is on what is my dharma in this situation.
Right. Wow. Beautiful.
So it is my dharma that is important. And
Mhm.
that is why, say, when Sita is abducted, Ram doesn't think, oh, Sita must have done some bad karma because of which she is abducted now. He thinks that, what is my dharma right now?
Mm.
She's my wife. I have to protect her. So he goes and wages a war. And then we hear many incidents in the Ramayana as well as the Mahabharata when citizens come and complain to the king, oh, these thieves are robbing us, this injustice is happening. The king doesn't tell the citizens, it's your own karma. Now,
Very good
now,
point.
if the king started saying that, then the king would be failing in their own dharma. So
Hmm.
there are two things. So in one sense, I always say that the philosophy is karma is not for post-mortem. It is for prognosis. Not
Acha.
for post-mortem means not when something has happened, you look back, okay, why, what must this person have done because of which they got this?
Wow. Good
That's
point.
it's
Yes.
never talked like in those terms. It's not meant to be talked in those terms. See, if
Hmm.
you consider in the Vedic tradition, it said that five kinds of people need to be protected. So the children need to be protected, the elderly need to be protected, the cows need to be protected,
Hmm.
women need to be protected,
Hmm.
and the saintly people, the brahmanas need to be protected.
Hmm.
Now, each of these they are very important for society, but each of
Right.
these they have certain vulnerabilities. So old people, their bodies are weak, they cannot protect themselves. Now
Hmm.
you could use the same philosophy and say, oh, you have become old because of your own karma only. So why protect them? Why is
Hmm.
there a duty to protect at all? So it
Acha.
is not karma is somebody else's karma is never meant to justify my abandonment of my dharma.
Wow.
And if you see that way, Indian culture was always known for hospitality. Atiti Devo Bhava is it. That
Hmm.
even when the European colonizers came to India, even before that, when Islamic people who came later became invaders, they were
Hmm.
always warm and welcoming. And
Hmm.
the idea was that nobody should go hungry. Now, I'm not saying that Indian culture was extremely exceptional in that. In the past, across various cultures, also the welcoming attitude was there. But
Hmm.
the point I was making, Indians could say, oh, if you are hungry and you're starving, it's your own karma. They
Hmm.
would never think like that. What
No.
is my dharma right now?
I've lost you again, Prabhu.
So I'm really sorry
What
about
is my
this.
dharma
The
right now?
emphasis on karma,
No, I'm sorry. It could be
yeah,
mine.
the emphasis on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, good. Thank you. So the emphasis on karma is never to abandon one's dharma. That's a very important principle. So if
Right.
somebody has applied it like that, that is a terrible misapplication. That is not how it is meant to be. It is not meant to make us heartless. There are many
Right.
examples of kings who are ready to sacrifice even their own lives to protect citizens. So
Right.
that's the understanding. It's not meant to be a misapplication.
So I like what you said about it. It's a tool for
Now, yeah.
prognosis and not for postmortem. meaning we don't use it as like, oh, what you've done in the past, now it's your fault, so just bear it,
Yes,
don't complain, don't be a burden to me. Essentially saying, don't tell me what to do and how to
exactly.
help you. uh, but so if we could just maybe expand a little bit more about on the prognosis part, so then how can we
Okay,
feel
that's a
more
good point.
empowered
Okay, so prognosis
with
part.
understanding?
See, there's one part I will say about this karma, that individual, when they face a terrible situation, they may say, "Oh, it must be some karma I've done in the past because of which I'm suffering." So
Yes.
there is a certain level of acceptance of the unavoidable that is required for all of us. Say, take the same example of a citizen who comes and tells, say, in the Mahabharata for the Pandavas, Brahmana says, I'm being robbed. What are you Kshatriyas doing? You're not protecting me. So if a citizen is being robbed by the king, or robbed by thieves, and the citizen comes to the king, and the king needs to endeavor to to catch the thief and get the things back. But if
Mm.
sometimes the thief just runs away and the king cannot catch it, then that person can accept, okay, maybe this was my own karma, let me accept it.
Mm.
So that means after we have done our dharma, if something doesn't work, that time we can accept, okay, this is, let me accept this as my karma from the past. Say if a mother has a child who is crying, now would any mother anywhere, even if the mother has complete faith in the philosophy of karma, will the mother say, oh, this child is crying because of the child's own past karma, let the child keep crying? No, nobody will do that. Obviously
Right.
not. Why? The mother thinks, what is my dharma, what is my duty right now?
Mm.
Now the mother will do everything to comfort the child, if the child is sick, to cure the child. But
Mm.
sometimes the child may be having some disease which may take some time to cure. We need to take some time to diagnose also for that matter. So at
Mm.
that time, after the parents have done their part,
Mm.
after the parents have done
Yes.
their part, then if the disease is not being cured, the child is still in distress, then they can accept. Maybe there is some karma over here. Let me accept this. So just saying
Right.
everything is karma, that way you can say, then why would the Vedic tradition even develop the whole system of Ayurveda? Everybody who falls sick because of their past karma. So let everybody suffer
Mm.
their karma. But they've
Mm.
developed one of the most sophisticated systems of medicine in the world. Ayurveda is becoming more and more recognized now as non-intrusive with far less side effects. So why would this be developed at all? So that's the part of this. For after we have done our part, if sometimes things don't come about, then we can say it's karma. We do our dharma after that, but not before that. So
It
with
goes
respect
back
to the
to the
prognosis part, as you mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
I like this point a lot, so I just want to restate it, that it comes back to the point you said earlier, that out of the three choices, if you consider it random chance or arbitrary God, it's the last one, accepting that there's something like karma in the final stages after we've done our dharma. If we accept the idea of karma, then it becomes empowering, because in that state, like you're
Yes,
saying, if the mother is seeing the child still crying after everything they've done, if there's no logical explanation that is to be accepted in our, in our consciousness, then it's very disempowering. But if at that point, when we're going through something, regardless of all of our efforts to avoid that suffering, if at that point we can really surrender and understand, okay, maybe previously I did something, and now how can I get out of that, that is an empowering state to be in. And I like that we kind of connected the two.
yes,
It's
it's
like
a,
that story about Dharmaraj, the bull, in the Bhagavatam, that's very famous. So when he is, three legs are chopped off, maybe you can just and how he goes on to say that maybe it's this thing, maybe it's kala, maybe it's this, maybe he's never saying that, oh, this person, he doesn't point the finger at the person who's chopping off his legs.
yes. See, that is beautiful metaphor. I was going to come to that later, so you anticipated what I was
Acha,
going to
oh,
say.
sorry.
Beautiful. Good. Good. No, no, good, good. Good. We are thinking very similarly then.
Uh-huh.
So the point I was making is that, see, in that this incident is what when Maharaj Parikshit hears that Kali's influence is spreading across his kingdom, he starts going out as a vigilant king to see. And then he comes to a place where there's a person dressed in black who is beating a cow and beating a bull, has broken three legs of the bull and is harassing a cow. At one level, this whole conversation can seem absurd
Hmm.
because when Parikshit Maharaj comes, he asks, "Oh bull, what is the cause of your suffering?" Now the bull goes, "Can't you see this man is beating me? Isn't it obvious to you?" So
Yes.
it's an obvious question. So why
Hmm.
are you even asking such a question to me? And
Hmm.
so first of all, he doesn't post, so he doesn't ask like that, and he doesn't even say, this is the person who caused this. He goes into a philosophical explanation and say, actually the cause
Hmm.
of suffering is very difficult to understand. So the Bhagavatam is actually so he Bhagavatam is actually analyzing causality at multiple levels. So the immediate causality is obvious. The immediate causality is
Hmm.
this man is causing it. So
Right.
after the bull says, "Oh, I don't know what causes it." Now Parikshit Maharaj doesn't say, "Okay, so Kali, you didn't cause it. You can go and do whatever you want." He still
Hmm.
disciplines Kali. He's about to punish Kali. So the immediate so he says to the bull that wisdom. You must be Dharmaraj because you have the wisdom to see beyond the immediate cause.
Wow.
That is your wisdom. But he doesn't dismiss the immediate cause and say, "Okay, you are not responsible." He is ready to punish, even kill Kali.
Sorry, it's breaking up, Prabhu.
So
So I'm just going to
we
repeat what
don't,
I think
we are not
I'm
blind to
hearing.
the. Yes,
It broke up in the
please
middle a
repeat.
bit. Well,
Yeah, please repeat.
what I heard is that you're saying that uh, Maharaj Parikshit doesn't just say that, well, I forgive Kali for doing this atrocious action. He's saying that that is your wisdom, that you are able to see more causality than just this one action that's happening now, and maybe that's empowering. So that's why he calls him Dharmaraj. You must be Dharmaraj because you're working on a much deeper level of philosophy than just this immediate action that's taken against you.
Yes,
Is that what
exactly.
you were saying?
Yeah, perfect. So we are not, when we talk about the philosophy of karma, we are not blind to the immediate cause. Hmm? Can you hear
Hmm.
me?
Yeah.
We are not blind to the immediate cause, but neither are we blinded by the immediate cause to everything else.
Hmm.
The two extremes. I don't see the
Right.
immediate cause at all, or I see only the immediate cause and I don't see anything else.
Hmm.
So causality itself is little complicated. I'll give a simple example to illustrate this from daily life. Can I share my screen? You're okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Please.
Okay. Share screen. Mhm. Are you seeing anything?
Yeah. It's just come up. That is. Um,
I don't
you've
know. Okay.
shared the.
Slides. No, from my computer. Oh, it will take it upload. I don't want to upload it now. I've done this before. Okay, window. Yeah. So this is. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah.
So this is you can call it the frame of reference in which we position situations. So consider an event. The event is, say, this is actually I had attended a seminar on, I participated in a conference on spirituality and mental health. So one girl in America, she had told the story of how she went into depression. So there's
Hmm.
one evident that incident that happened to her, that she was studying in university, and she was also waiting tables to get some money by the way, by the
Hmm.
side. So she was serving a client and the glass slipped from her hand. This
Hmm.
was the event. Oh no, that glass slipped out of my hand. Now, this simple event can be explained in various ways.
Hmm.
Okay, why did the glass slip? Okay, the glass had just been washed, and washed glasses are slippery. So in the
Hmm.
future, let me be careful. As if the glass had just come from the sink, then I should make sure that it is dry. Hmm? So that could be one cause.
Hmm.
So then another cause could be that, okay, that customer screamed at me, and that disturbed me, and that's how the glass slipped out of my hand. So some customers are like that. I shouldn't get too disturbed by them. That could be another explanation. Why did the glass? Maybe the the patient, the customer's misbehavior had agitated me. The third could be I was walking along this area. The floor was slippery over there. So next time when I walk around that area, I have to be careful, or I should get this. I should ask the manager to get this floor fixed. The floor is uneven over there. Or it could be that, okay, I, I'm not particularly handy at physical work. Maybe if I need a job, I have to look at something else. So now, which of these explanations is useful? It depends on context. Simple and simple, like slipping of a glass from a hand. So she was telling how, if we choose the wrong frame of reference. Actually, this was my explanation after she gave her talk. That she said that at that time she started thinking, if I can't carry even a glass of water, how am I going to manage my life? I'm a worthless person.
Oh, Krishna.
Now, how many of us have actually had glass of water slip from our hands? Probably everyone. How many of us thought that my life is useless because of that? That is a very unhealthy frame in which to place that incident. So the idea is every incident can be placed in different frames. In
Right.
different frames. Frames means, by frame I mean a cause-effect connection, a causal window, a cause-effect window. Why did the glass slip from my hand? Because I'm an incompetent fool. That's a very unhealthy explanation. So, basically, there are many boxes, and in many ways, when people have mental health problems, they are placing the events of their life in unhealthy boxes. In unhealthy boxes. So if somebody has a breakup, and then they just sink into depression, well, that might happen because they will think, because of that one breakup, I think nobody's going to love me. I'm unlovable. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. Okay. Does that have to be the explanation that you have to resort to? Maybe the two of us didn't get along together. Maybe there is something for me to learn, but that doesn't make me unlovable if there's something I need to learn more. So basically, why this itself is a big subject of mental health, but the point I'm making is that one sign of mental health is to be able to place events in the most constructive frame of reference, to find the
Right.
most constructive causal explanation for an event. Now, which of these are true? Well, many could be true. The glass was slippery, even the customer had screamed at me, the floor was uneven, and I am not suited for physical work so much. All of these could be true. But right now, which is the most constructive explanation for me?
I've lost you again.
Right now, which is the most constructive explanation for me? So, which is the
Right.
explanation I can act on right now? That is the most constructive explanation. So,
Right.
similarly, with respect to karma basically is meant to give us one more causal framework in which to place the events. But that should never be the only framework. That should not be the only framework in which you put the events. So
Wow.
if we start doing that, then that will be injurious. And that is not you could say almost, if somebody is doing that, that is not the problem of the philosophy of karma. We could say that is almost the problem of the mental health of that person. It is a sign of mental health, mental ill health, to
Right.
place events in a in a disempowering framework. In a disempowering
Exactly.
framework. So if is this point, I hope it made it clear, reasonably
I,
clear what
I
I'm trying to say.
I really appreciate it because it's actually tying in so many little ends that we may not actually connect. Because just like in the earlier example that you gave of a mother and a child crying, if in that moment she says, "I'm just a useless mother," this, or she starts feeling ill feelings towards the child. This child is such a burden. It's giving me so much. You, it's all about framework and like understanding the wisdom in that moment is so crucial for our mental health, for our experience of reality itself. And that's, I can appreciate that back to the story of Dharmaraj and Parikshit Maharaj, that the most empowering situation would be to say, okay, what can I do? What can I do to change the situation? Because this other person is not going to change. So
Yes.
that I find really empowering. Um, if it's
Yes.
okay, if we can move into how the title of today was freeing ourselves from karma.
Yes.
So if we can maybe highlight that, is there an escape? Because in one hand, yes, it's empowering to kind of fix bad situations, but on the other hand, action also gives us joy and pleasure. So karma itself
Okay.
is responsible for our happiness and our distress. So why is this that there's this idea that we have to free ourselves of karma itself? Why is it
Okay.
said that it's
Okay. So
binding?
the word, yeah, good point. So karma is in much action is natural for us.
Mm,
So why do we have to free ourselves from karma? So here we have to, again, I said there are two meanings of the word karma.
right,
Karma as action and karma as reaction. So when we are saying free ourselves from karma, it doesn't mean give up all action.
right.
It means free ourselves from the reactions of karma.
Hmm,
So act in a way that we won't get entangled by further reactions. The two are really different. So it's not that we give up karma entirely. That's just not possible. Mm. Like some
right.
people say that you do no work, just give up all work. But actually, even if we give up all work, we are still thinking. We are still our brains are working, our bodies are digesting food. Nobody can give up work entirely. Mm.
Mhm.
Somebody says give up all desires. Well, even wanting to give up all desires is also a
It's
desire.
a very powerful desire.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we can't do that in one sense. So it's more of, r- you could say, freeing ourselves from karma means it's a more a matter of alignment or purification. So
Mhm.
purification or alignment, the two are very similar. Alignment means we are all parts of a reality far bigger than ourselves.
Mm.
And each of us has our part to play within that bigger picture, in that bigger reality. And to the extent we are aligned with that bigger picture, with that bigger purpose, to that extent we become free from karma. What does it mean
Wow.
free from karma? Free from karma means we are not culpable for our
Mm.
actions. So first we'll talk a little extreme example, then we come to ordinary examples. That, say, if somebody breaks the traffic rules and they go through above the speed limit, or they go break through when there is a red signal, they are culpable.
Mhm.
They are culpable. They'll be punished. But suppose somebody is an ambulance driver and they are
Mhm.
having an emergency. Now, what is happening is, if they are rushing, they may even go above the speed limit, they may even break through the red signal, and they will not be punished for that.
Mm.
Because that ambulance driver is not just, if it's their own desire, I just want to have fun and go very
Mhm.
fast. Well, even ambulance drivers, they have rules. You cannot just flout all the rules if you don't have an emergency patient.
Yeah.
For normal drives, you cannot break the rules. But when they are working as a part of something bigger than themselves,
Mm.
then the normal rules may not apply. Then they are
Mhm.
not culpable. Now, that doesn't mean that they neglect and reject the rules. It is just
Right.
that they are not culpable. They are not held
Mm.
guilty.
Okay.
So the traffic rules are important and traffic rules are to be followed. But if one is fulfilling a bigger purpose, then one doesn't become implicated by karma.
Mm.
So, similarly, the idea is that we are all parts of Krishna. And if we start doing our work in a mood of service to Krishna,
Mhm.
so then whatever we do, that will not lead to karmic bondage, that will not lead to karmic implications.
Right.
So we could say that the three levels of working with respect to traffic. I mentioned this last time, that
Mm.
I just drive along the road and I don't care for the traffic rules at all.
Mhm.
Soon going to get in trouble. For
Right.
some time, I might escape. I saw once a cartoon that the person was speeding way above the limit,
Mm.
and then the cop pulled him over. Said, "Didn't you see the speed? Didn't you see the speed limit sign?" He says, this person says, "I saw the sign. I just didn't see you."
हाँ, सही है.
So that means sometimes if you say that if there's nobody watching me, I can break the speed limit and go.
Hmm.
Well, you can go for some time, but eventually you'll get caught.
Right.
So that way, somebody may break the traffic rules for some time, but sooner or later they'll get caught. So
Mm-hmm.
breaking the traffic rules itself is weak karma. Hmm? It is
Hmm.
karma, viruddha rupena karma. It is
Right.
karma which will give us bad results.
Mm-hmm.
Then working according to traffic rules is karma.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm? That is, yes, I'm going to whatever destination I want to go, but I'm following the traffic rules and going.
Right.
Then the government is not going to interfere with us. The government will, in one sense, facilitate the make by maintaining sure the roads are good, but the government is not going to assist us. But if somebody is working in the medical industry and they're an ambulance, they're working on behalf of the government, then
Mm.
even the normal rules may be suspended.
Wow.
So there is vikarma, there is karma, and there is akarma.
Right.
So akarma is action that does not produce any reaction, and that is like a, as I
Bhakti.
said, doctor, ambulance driver working.
Mm.
They may temporarily go beyond the traffic rules for a higher purpose. So the
Mm-hmm.
Gita encourages us from wherever we are to rise higher. See, from vikarma, we come towards karma.
Mm-hmm.
From karma, we go towards akarma. Akarma means, so at one level, Arjuna could fight because I'm a Kshatriya
Mm-hmm.
and I need a kingdom to rule, and these people have stolen my kingdom, and I had to get the kingdom back. If he fought at that level, he would still be right. He would be doing karma. Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
Be doing karma. But the Gita guided Arjuna to fight. Not just you have to gain your kingdom. Actually, Krishna says, I have come here to this world to establish dharma,
Mm-hmm.
and you be my instrument. Nimitta matram bhava savyasachi. In 1133, Krishna tells Arjuna that you become my instrument. So your
Mm-hmm.
purpose is not just to make Yudhishthira the king. Your purpose is not just to gain entry into the royal palace. After gaining your entry there, your position there, you will work on my behalf. You will serve me.
Mm-hmm.
You will be a part of my mission for bringing about order in the
Dharma.
world.
Right.
So if somebody works like that, then it is a karma. So
Mm-hmm.
broadly speaking, if we are to become free from the bondage of karma, it is best we move toward a karma. A karma means we work, whatever work we are doing in our lives, professional, familial, social, we do it in a mood of service to Krishna. Now, how exactly we can reconceptualize or re-execute
Mm-hmm.
our various roles in society, our various okay, sorry. So,
Sorry, I
okay,
lost
can
you
you hear me
again.
now?
Yeah,
Can you hear
you've
me
come
now?
back. Yes.
So, I was saying that how we can reconceptualize all our work, how we can do all our work as a form of service to Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
that is taught in Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga involves learning from a guru, learning from the association of Vaishnavas, of devotees, bhaktas. Satsang is very important. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that is broadly speaking, becoming free from karma means to work as a seva to Krishna, to work in a
Mm-hmm.
mood of service to Krishna. That is the ultimate way you can become free from karma. And broadly, by aligning with the rules of morality and legality, we can at least become free from vikarma.
Mm-hmm.
So, vikarma to karma, we can come by following the broad rules of morality. And from karma to akarma, we can come by practicing bhakti.
So
Yeah.
one might question that, do we need God to become free from karma? Like, um, why would God have created a system in which we get bound up?
Yeah, good question. Do we need karma, God to become free? See, God reciprocates with our desires. Hmm.
Hmm.
So ultimately, the world is created for us to have facility for fulfilling our desires. We have
Hmm.
various desires, and the world is created for fulfilling those desires. So imagine it's like a vast amusement park. Hmm. And in each amusement park, the children who are playing. A child can go on a slide, a child can go into a tunnel, a child can go on a merry-go-round, a child can go on a
Right.
various kinds of things. Each of them, each of them, you could say, have their own rules. If
Mm-hmm.
you go up on a giant wheel, you cannot jump off from there. There will be straps around you. You have to follow those rules. Hmm? So you could say the whole world is like a giant amusement park. Now, in the amusement park, if we are following the rules, we can have a good time. And there are many, many things which you can keep doing.
Right.
But the child says, I played enough now. I just want to go back home. I start looking for the mother, father. Then the parents are there, they'll take the child back home. So we could say the world is like a giant amusement park in which that there are various things we can try out.
Mm-hmm.
And for trying out, how much can we try out? There are two things. One is our desire, and the other is our karma.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want? Which of the things in the amusement park you want to try out? That's one thing based on you will decide. But then how much money does the child have to play? So we take the expand it further. Maybe the child is there are some places the child can even earn money.
Mm.
So there is karma. Karma is our here it's the past karmic credits. So the world is arranged in such a way that it facilitates our desires. So if we do good things, we will get to a better place in the world. But there is a difference between, you could say, religious and spiritual. There's a difference between ritual and spiritual.
Mm.
So ritual is broadly speaking what we might say as good karma, that will give us a better condition in life. Now, of course, the
Right.
word ritual today has a negative connotation, as you're doing something mindlessly. But the
Mm.
original idea of ritual is that if we do something which is prescribed by tradition, prescribed by scripture, prescribed by culture, and it is considered normally to be a good thing. Not all
Mm.
rituals today are good things, but the idea of
Mm.
ritual is there are certain good activities we do, and they will give us good results in the future. That's
Right.
ritual.
Mm.
But just doing good things is not going to take us out of this world.
Right.
Doing good things will take us to a better place in this world. So if you want to get ultimately free from the world, okay, I don't want to play in this world at all anymore. I want to play in this atmosphere. I want to say, where's my mom? Where's my dad? I want to go back to them, go back with them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there is a karma which is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita ultimately, not just karma, but a karma.
Mm-hmm.
Does that address the
Wonderful.
question?
Yes, it really does. In the sense that it helps analyze why we are continuing in the cycle. It's our own choice. I like the point that you're pointing out. We, Krishna has created this to facilitate our desires. Karma is not an
Yes.
oppressive force. It's not like, because many times we get the idea that we are bound by the karma, but actually what you're highlighting is that it's our own desire. We are here enjoying the fruits of our labor. And the moment that we give up that control and that need for enjoyment, we can kind of, when, like you said, when you're done, when the child is done and says, okay, now I want to look for my parents, I'm done with this amusement park. Then when we let go and decide, then we can move more into the spiritual realm. Maybe
Yes.
from the
Perfect.
ritual, then we get into the spiritual aspect of so maybe we can just unpack that a little bit more. There's another question here as
Yeah.
well, similar.
Yeah.
That
Let me
what
complete this
is?
question. Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you explain
What
how?
you mentioned, I'll just complete that if you don't
Acha.
mind. What you
Yes,
said about
please.
karma. So let's take an example. Say a person has gone from their home to a different kingdom, different city,
Hmm.
different country, different kingdom. And
Hmm.
now uh, you talk about karma bind. Does karma bind? Why do we say karma binds? It's
Hmm.
karma is basically a system of cosmic accountability.
Hmm.
We're accountable for our actions. That's the essence of karma. So say somebody goes from somebody comes from India to UK, and now if after coming to UK they start breaking all the laws over there,
Hmm.
then they'll be put in the jail. Then
Hmm.
what happens is they're restricted. They're restricted.
Right.
Now there are different
Hmm.
kinds of jails also. Somebody might
Right.
be put in the jail where they're highly restricted. Somebody might be put in a there are relatively, if somebody is educated they can do some good contribution even in the jail, they might be put in a relatively more comfortable jail.
Hmm.
Now somebody says, okay, you can go to home, but you cannot leave this geographical area.
Right.
You're under parole, something like that. Then somebody will be told, okay, you can go wherever you want, but you have to give us an account of your activities.
Hmm.
So we could say that a
Different
person
gradation.
is always under the jurisdiction of the country's laws. But
Hmm.
how much do the country's laws control them depends on how they have acted in the past.
Right.
So if a person has a very bad criminal record, then the country's laws will, in one sense, as you said, seem oppressive. You cannot
Mm.
even go out of the cell,
Mm.
because if you have been behaving badly even in a jail, then you may put in this thing solitary confinement. So like that, what happens is karma, it restricts, but there are degrees of restriction.
Right. That's beautiful. Can you hear me?
So somebody has done a lot of negative karma, they may have a lot of okay. Yeah. Somebody has done a lot of bad karma in the past, negative karma, then basically their facilities will be restricted a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So one way would be they may be born in a very poor family, they may not have a healthy body, they may
Mm-hmm.
have very low IQ, they may
Mm.
be born in a country there's a lot of political instability, or they cannot even be very free to move around. So there are different degrees of bondage and separate different degrees of restriction. So if somebody has done good karma, they may not even perceive much restriction. Okay, I have good
Mm.
intelligence, I work hard, I do well in my career. I was born in a good family, I had a good upbringing, I'm doing well in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So then what is the limitation for them? For them also the limitation is ultimately that we all have to grow old, we have to get deceased, we have to die, and then we have to be reborn. So the
Right.
limitations, their circles may vary,
Right.
but ultimately everybody, the biggest limitation that karma puts us in is that as long as we are under karma, we are in the domain of this temporary world. We are
Mm.
eternal beings, and we are seeking pleasure and fulfillment in temporary things. So that is something which is an existential predicament. So only
Mm.
when we start seeking the eternal, we start turning toward the Lord, that's when we go beyond the jurisdiction of karma. Okay.
Beautiful. Right there, what you just said, that we are eternal beings seeking pleasure in a temporary world. And that is the basic
Yes.
predicament. And to get out of it, we must turn to bhakti. Like you talked about alignment, to completely get out of a maybe UK. You use the country example. You would need to have a passport for another world, another country. So that
Yes.
passport is kind of like bhakti. This is Krishna's creation, and he has that capacity to take us out of this karmic, very broad boundaries that you're explaining, janma mrityu jara vyadi, like birth, death, old age, and disease. No matter how karmically fortunate we are, we will all have to go through that cycle and take birth again, which is very non-desirable, to say the least. So if we can maybe come to this point about bhakti, how much and maybe what are the nuances of how does bhakti take away the karma? um,
Okay. So the idea is that bhakti helps, ultimately karma is not just a system for accountability.
hmm,
It's ultimately a system to promote spirituality. I'll explain what I mean by this is, see, if somebody has done something wrong and they are put in the jail, or they are put
I've
in some
just
kind of
changed the
restriction.
question slightly because somebody else has asked a relevant question to what you are answering. So go ahead. So it's not just accountability. Go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt.
Okay. Yeah. So a person is put in a jail. They may say that, okay, for this crime, you have to be 5 years in jail. But the purpose of the justice system is not just to incarcerate the criminal for 5 years. If the
Right.
criminal is behaving very responsibly, is maybe learning some life skills by which they can get a better life outside, maybe in 3 years they may be allowed to come out,
Mhm.
isn't it? So
Yeah.
if that happens in our justice systems, then what to speak of the divine justice system?
Right.
So the point is that the more we align with the ultimate purpose of life, with the purpose of God for the world, then we may have done some negative karma in the past. But the
Mm.
purpose of the karmic system is not just to that every single action you have done, you have to get the punishment for that.
Mm.
No, that's not the point. The point
Mm.
is to prompt us to become more and more aligned. So when
Wow.
Krishna says Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So when
Wow.
he's saying that, the point is if you become fully aligned with me, then okay, whatever karma might have happened in the past, whatever karma might you think might happen in the future, I'll take care of that.
Hmm.
So that's how, in one sense, sometimes he says bhakti burns our past karma. Well, burning is a very vivid metaphor, but the
Hmm.
point is, it's, you can say, you can use the word burning, but the point is the previous karma's action reactions are no, they become redundant. They are no
Hmm.
longer needed. If once a person has become aligned, why is that needed at all? So in that
Right.
sense, the bhakti burns away our past karma.
Beautiful. I think you've answered so many questions with just within this tiny segment here. That the point of karma is not just accountability. It's not tit for tat. God is not just
Yes,
a
definitely.
vengeful kind of
Yeah.
punishing Lord. He wants us to reunite. He wants us to align with His purpose of creation and purpose of our existence, the purpose of our
Yes.
life and meaning. So as soon as we align, all the other, these are almost secondary. The karma and the dharma almost become secondary to the alignment itself.
Yes, that's very good. I think tit for tat is a good word. Rather than
Huh.
accountability, I think the word which came to my mind was, now, after you use tit for tat, is retribution. Karma
Retribution,
is not a
yes.
retributive justice. That you did
Ah,
this, so you have to get this. The
right.
purpose of karma is not retribution, it is reformation.
Reformation.
If you're reformed, then there's no need for retribution anymore.
Right. Beautiful. So maybe just slightly more on unpacking this one. Can it burn out our, you know, experiences? How much does bhakti burn out?
Okay. How much does bhakti burn our, say, currently experienced karmas? See, firstly, it's not mathematical. Life is not mathematical. Okay, we can't even quantify how much karma do I have, how much karma does this particular thing cause. We can get a broad understanding, so it's not exactly mathematical. Ultimately, it's personal, it's reciprocal. It's
Hmm.
Krishna wants us to align with him, so it's a matter of developing a relationship with him. So whatever is favorable for the development of our relationship with Krishna, what we can call as our spiritual evolution, that is what Krishna ultimately arranges through the system of karma.
Wow.
So, will a devotee, even somebody who's practicing bhakti, go through some sufferings? Well, yeah. It's not that the world's nature is going to change. If there's going to be
Hmm.
a storm, whether somebody is a devotee or not a devotee, both of them are going to be inconvenienced, both of them are going to be threatened. So,
Hmm.
at a material level, we can't, bhakti doesn't promise that the events happening in the material level will themselves be changed. So there's some
Hmm.
amount of inconvenience, some amount of distress will come. But what bhakti gives us is a higher vision of what is happening in our lives. So one way I put it is that the world's power to hurt is immense. It can hurt us in many different ways. But greater than the world's power to hurt is God's power to heal.
Hmm.
Is God's power to heal. So
Right.
bhakti doesn't ensure that the world will no longer hurt us. But bhakti will give us access to God's power to heal. So the key difference between somebody who is aligned with the Lord and somebody who is not yet aligned with the Lord, what is the difference? It is not that the world will no longer hurt them. The world's hurts are going to come on everyone. But it's like a compare two people in a hospital, they're in adjacent beds, and both of them are in pain because they have a painful disease.
Hmm.
But person A, their disease has been diagnosed accurately and a potent treatment has been prescribed.
Hmm.
And person B, the disease has not been diagnosed, and various kinds of treatments are being tried out. Nothing seems to be working. So at present, A and B both are in a state of distress,
Right.
but their future is very different.
Hmm.
A is a person whose disease is going to be controlled and cured. Their pain is going to decrease and disappear. B, their disease may worsen, their pain may also worsen. So that is the difference between somebody who is a devotee, who's a bhakta, somebody is aligned with the Lord, and somebody is not yet aligned with the Lord. So the
Wow.
present experiences may not change, but
Hmm.
what is going to emerge through the present experiences may change. Both are diseased, so both will have some suffering. But
Right.
The bhakta is one who has understood, okay, what's wrong in my life ultimately, and how can I set it right? So the diagnosis has been done, the prescription has been
Mm.
accepted. The
You
future is very bright because of that.
Beautiful. Yeah, you explained very succinctly, like prarabdha karma may not change, but your, bija and kuta, and like there's some technical terms, you may not be inclined anymore to make those same bad karmic actions. But
Yes.
externally, the bhakta and the abhakta would look the same. We're all going to be going through sufferings, and in fact, the reduction of suffering is not the goal of the alignment with God. The reduction of suffering, because in one sense, it's just the world is described as a place of suffering, in all sense that we can imagine.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
so
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point about reduction of suffering. I talk about this at 5 levels. If I will just take a few minutes about how what happens.
mm,
See, first is that once we start getting spiritual knowledge, at the very least, we stop creating future suffering for ourselves.
right.
Why? Because I know, okay, these are things which I do. It is going to, like, the prognosis aspect. So
Mm,
first is, at least I know these things I should not do. So we stop creating future suffering for ourselves. So in that sense, it reduces suffering. Hmm?
right.
So the knowledge to make right choices.
Mhm.
Second is, sometimes in some situations we may have the knowledge to make the right choices, but somehow we are not able to muster the will to make the right choices. I know
Mm,
this thing is bad, but still I keep doing it. What bhakti does is, it provides the inner strength, the inner insight, the higher taste, as we call it.
mm,
So, as we get that higher taste, the habits which we wanted to leave but which were not leaving us, we
mm,
also are able to become free from those. So that also ensures that we are not creating any future suffering.
mhm.
The suffering because of ignorance, suffering because of attachments. Ignorance
Right.
leading to bad choices, attachment leading to bad choices. Both these sufferings are reduced. So that's two level. Level one, knowledge. The level two is, you could say, willpower is
Mhm.
increased. Then you can talk about level three is tolerance. Tolerance
Right.
means that when I start understanding that I am a soul and I am on a multi life journey, so whatever bad thing is happening to me, I can see it from much bigger framework. I won't catastrophize it. This is the
Mm,
end of the world for me. My life is over because, this, as I said, this relationship didn't work out, or this job didn't work out, this interview didn't work out. My life is
mm,
over. No, 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 no. We
mm,
are we are for the long haul over here. So just Krishna says that he talks about the Atma in the 13th verse of the second chapter, and immediately said the result of knowing the Atma is Tam Stitiksha Swabharata, tolerate.
mm, mm,
So one of my favorite examples for this is, actually I gave this example on a class in Florida, and there was a devotee who was there in the class. He said, I had this experience. That he
mm,
says that there are sometimes some leeches. Say somebody's going out in the forest or somewhere, and some leech just catches your leg,
mm.
and that leech is sucking the blood out. It's very scary to feel its tentacles going into the body.
Ugh.
And now sometimes what happens is that if you try to pull the leech out, it has such a strong grip that it'll
That it
rip the
goes
whole
even
skin out,
more.
but it'll not let go.
Oh, Krishna.
So we may say, what do you do then?
Mm,
Well, the thing to do at that time is just let the leech drink the blood. Say, how can I do that? It's drinking my blood. But the thing is, the
mm,
leech does not have an infinite capacity to drink blood.
right.
Once it has drunk its capacity of blood, it will itself fall off, or it will withdraw its tentacles, and we can just flip it off. So our karma comes like that. It's like a
Mm,
leech which is sucking blood. But we understand that, okay, it's going to suck certain level of blood, but not
mhm.
beyond that.
Right.
So tolerate. While it is there, it's not the end of the world.
Mhm,
So whatever inevitable sufferings come, we learn tolerance. That's the third level.
mhm,
Mhm. So then the fourth level at which we are become better equipped is that we understand the meaning and purpose. Okay, ultimately Krishna has some plan for me. So we learn to place our suffering in a constructive framework. Okay. One is just tolerate. It is there, it will be there temporarily. But I talked earlier about the framework. I can
mhm.
place this in a constructive framework.
Right.
So Srila Prabhupada, He tried in so many ways to try to build a big business so that he could have support his spiritual master's mission financially. But none of his projects, none of his businesses worked. And then what happened was he was thinking when he had particular devastating financial loss he experienced. So one of his godbrothers told him, and he also read in the Bhagavatam that this is Krishna's special mercy. Oh, this is Krishna's special mercy. When Vidura was grievously insulted by the Duryodhan, it was a horrible insult. But what did Vidura see? Oh, this is an opportunity for me to just leave this kingdom. Then I
Mhm.
won't have to fight against Krishna. I don't have to fight for Duryodhan. So it was a very painful thing, but he was able to see it positively. Now,
Mm.
this is what people often call as positive thinking, and it's very helpful. But the
Right.
scripture doesn't just help us to think positive, it actually gives us a positive vision of reality itself. That there is a
Mm.
higher purpose.
Mm.
It is that there is a higher purpose over here, and we try to align ourselves with that. So that
Right.
itself decreases suffering substantially.
Hmm.
Because see,
Beautiful.
we are not really, nobody wants pain, but what we especially abhor is pointless pain.
Pointless pain. Yes,
If I
absolutely.
can see this is purposeful, then okay, I'll endure it. Nobody would like to be jabbed in their body. But if they know there's
Mm.
an injection which is going to, or it's going to protect me from disease, then okay, I'll endure it. So that
Mm.
meaning, giving us a sense of meaning and purpose at the fourth level of help, that itself
Hmm.
reduces suffering a lot. Hmm?
Right.
So suppose then the fifth level is what we're discussing about is minimization. See,
Ah.
Krishna himself may minimize the suffering. Krishna, like the government may reduce a 5 years old 5 year sentence to 2.5 year sentence. So like
Mhm.
that, Krishna can minimize the karma. So sometimes what happens is we just focus on the fifth one and we think I'm practicing bhakti. Why is Krishna not minimizing my karma?
Mm.
And if Krishna is not minimizing my suffering, what is the use of practicing bhakti? Does bhakti even work? But
Mm.
if we focus only on that fifth dimension, we are actually missing out on all these other four things.
Wow,
So
that's
I'll
powerful.
quickly summarize. The first is, would you like to summarize or you want me to summarize? Five things.
No, no.
Okay.
Well, I don't remember them all in order,
No, sure, I'll
so.
do that then. I mean, I'll do that quickly. So first I said is that the knowledge to not create further suffering, knowledge to
Mm.
make good choices. Second
Okay.
is the will to be able to make the good choices we know we should be doing, but we are not able to do. So you can
Mm.
say purity. Bhakti purifies us. And so one is knowledge, second is purification. Third is tolerance. Yeah, suffering has come, it's going to be temporary. Let's each example. The
Mm.
fourth is a meaningful vision. See
Mm.
meaning in suffering. And the fifth is minimization of karma itself by Krishna. So in all these ways, our suffering, we can deal with suffering better. Our
Mm.
suffering does become minimized, and whatever
Mm.
suffering remains, we are able to deal with it better.
Right. It's almost like a transformation of the experience of suffering. It's like the suffering is
Yes,
still
very true.
there, but like you're saying, our willpower, our intellect, all these extra support systems, if we have in place,
Yes,
then we can, experience that suffering in a completely different way, a completely transformed
yes,
way. So it's like a superpower. It's kind of like having spiritual power to deal with that. Um, you
yes.
really think very helpful those 5 points. I'll try to write it out in the comments as well. But if we could just maybe take a slight detour, which is very
Yeah,
much
sure.
related to this, because we're talking right now about aligning with Krishna's will,
Hmm.
turning towards bhakti to, in some sense, transform our karma, or reduce our karma. Then what is to stop? How should we check ourselves from maybe using bhakti to be doing vikarma? Sometimes people may say, I'm doing God's will. In the name of God, we shall do, terrorism. It could be anything. It could be, how do we know that something is truly God's will, and how to
Okay.
avoid? Are all kinds of deeds, can anything be done in God's name? It seems
Okay, that's a good
anything can
question.
be
Yeah, very good.
justified in God's name.
Yeah. So God's will, that can be a very, as you rightly said, can become a rationalization for doing my will. And I
Hmm.
can claim that I'm doing God's will. That is why there are multiple checks involved. First of all, the biggest check in my understanding, is that the Gita has two frameworks. One is the devotional framework, the bhakti framework, and the other is the guna framework. The guna is the three modes of material nature: sattva,
Mm.
rajas, and tamas. So now this guna framework itself is complicated, but let's put it in a simple way. That what it means is that in tamoguna, a person is completely misaligned with reality. They can't even perceive physical reality or material reality properly. Person
Mm.
said driving drunk. They can't even see, maybe they're so driving so drunk they can't control the brakes. They can't see who's coming along the way. That is
Mm.
tamasic. So
Mm.
if somebody is, their overall life is in tamoguna, that means they are abusive, they're exploitative, they're negligent, they are, and suddenly that person says, I am doing God's will. Well, definitely you are far, far misaligned from God's will. So there is tamoguna, which is extreme misalignment. Rajoguna is characterized by, okay, we are following the rules of the traffic to some extent, but it's
Mm.
all for my gain.
Mm.
I have nothing to do with the government. I have nothing to do with any higher purpose in life. But I just want to get my own desires fulfilled. So in Rajoguna, one is perceiving material reality reasonably well, but no spiritual reality, practically speaking. And one may accept some god or something like that as long as he doesn't interfere in my life. I may worship him if he can help things better, make things a little better for me. But otherwise, I have nothing to do with God. So Rajoguna, you could say, is a slightly greater alignment with reality. At least a person is perceiving much material reality. So if you consider in terms of parenting, say some parents maybe unfortunately, they are themselves, they may be depressed and they may be taking drugs, and their children are hungry at home and they don't even care for them.
Mm.
That's terrible, negligent parenting. Hmm.
Mm.
Then some parents may be like very, very, very ambitious, and they put a lot of pressure on their children, and for them, their children just become means for fulfilling their desires.
An
They may provide
extension
a
of,
lot of comfort. Sorry.
it's
Yeah.
an extension of themselves. How to
Yes.
enjoy.
Yeah, they may work very hard and they may provide their children a lot of facilities also, but they're
Mm.
not really, so they're not really seeing the children holistically. This is a
Mm.
person different from me, and what is this who is this actually, what are their natural interests, what are their talents.
Mm.
So a parent in rajoguna is much better than a parent in tamoguna, no doubt.
Mm.
They're caring for their children, and if the child is sick or something like that, they may take mortgage on their own house and everything they may put for taking care of the children,
Mm.
but they want the children to conform to their idea of how who should be. So you're not really seeing the child as a person in their own right. Then beyond that is sattva-guna.
Mm.
Sattva-guna is where we see material reality and we also see spiritual reality. Yes, this is my child, but is also a soul who has
Mm.
their own past karma, and that's why they have their own individuality. So I cannot just expect this child to be my Xerox copy or
Mm.
just be an extension of my plan for my life.
Mm.
So that is Sattva-guna. So Sattva-guna, we can say we are a little more aligned with who the person is.
Mm.
So Krishna actually is asked by Arjuna this question: if people claim to have faith, he says that if people claim to have faith, but how do we know what the level of their faith is? Anybody can claim I'm doing God's will. So
Mm.
Krishna says, don't just accept their claims for faith. Look at how they are living.
Live life.
And he
Yeah.
gives parameters for looking at whether how they are living in whether their overall conduct is sattva, rajas, or tamas.
Mm.
And a person cannot be an instrument of God's will unless they are at least living in sattva.
Mm.
At least to some extent in sattva. If a person is just indiscriminately shooting down anyone killing anyone who opposes them, person is intolerant, a person is arrogant, and maybe they have grabbed some religious authority somehow, that person cannot be considered to be doing God's will at all.
Mm.
So God's will is not just reading some statement from some religious text and thinking I'm going to do this, or just getting some authority in some religious organization and saying that they're doing God's will. God's will has to be actually an alignment, and that alignment has to be seen in our entire life.
Mm.
So in that sense, only when a person is steadily living in sattva and moving towards shuddha sattva, that's when we can say that person is doing God's will. That person is
Mm.
living in largely living in rajas and tamas. Tamas means completely ignorant of even material reality. Rajas means only pursuing material reality. Then such people cannot really be said to be doing God's will. And that's why nobody can, in general, we've seen most saintly people, like even Srila Prabhupada, he never claimed that when he came to the West, he said, I am doing Krishna's will. Rather, he said, I am doing my Guru's will. I am following my Guru's instruction.
Mm.
So the idea is that we need other people around us to hold us accountable.
Wow.
Even when we are spiritually elevated. So God's will is never meant to uh, meant to override our morality, never meant to override our conscience, never meant to override our common sense, our intelligence. These are resources which God has provided all of us to some
Mm.
extent. So, in exceptional situations, very, very exceptional situations, God's will maybe go beyond all this. But we look at Krishna, how he persuaded Arjuna.
Mm.
Krishna did not tell Arjuna, "This is my will, just do it." If that
Hmm.
was his idea, he could have completed the whole Gita in 6 words. I am God, obey me, fight. Could have finished the Gita in 6 words. Krishna did not do that. Krishna
Mm.
did want Arjuna to align with his will. But how? By training Arjuna's intelligence, by reasoning with him. So
Mm.
generally, God's will builds on the resources for discernment that we have been given. I'll repeat
Right.
this. We all have been given some resources for discerning what is the right thing to do. See, one
Mm.
resource is our intelligence. This product is advertised. It's a good product. Is it really as good? I use my intelligence. We have
Mm.
common sense. We have our conscience. Conscience is something inside which this doesn't seem to be good. And then we have, you could say broadly speaking, the cultural moral codes. They are not
Mm.
always right, but there are
Mm.
various resources available for us to discern what is the right thing to do.
Mm.
And God's will builds on this. God's will is not just rejecting all this and this is God's will, do it. So Krishna
Mm.
doesn't have that mood. You have your intelligence, and I will respond to your questions intelligently and
Based
help
on
you to
your
see,
intelligence. Huh.
help your intelligence to become convinced that aligning with my will is the best thing to do. So that's
Mm.
why this is a very dangerous thing if people start claiming that I am doing God's will. Now,
Mm.
first learn to follow your intelligence, first learn to follow your conscience, first learn to act in a responsible way in society. Then
Mm.
we can first come to Sattva Guna, then we can talk about God's will. Otherwise, if before that people are talking about I'm doing God's will, that's a extremely dangerous thing to say.
Mm. Beautiful. Wow. There's a lot of questions coming through. But I think time is up. So if we could, I was just wanted to go a little bit towards uh, just practical tips on daily life of freeing ourselves a little bit more. Because we talk about a karmic footprint as if it's a carbon footprint. Like if we
Okay.
recycle, if we plant more trees, if we speak politely. At least in England, it's a very big thing to be courteous, and it's very important part of life. Is my take on karma is that no matter how much we do, it is not going to relieve us from the karma. That Am I wrong in thinking that? Or is there a way that we can live a little bit more harmoniously and maybe just evade all the karmic pitfalls? Is it possible to just live with good sukriti, good
Hmm.
good deeds, good Samaritan, lots of philanthropy, and just be happy in my life? Why do I need
Yeah.
God?
Yes. See, at one level, from the mode of tamas or rajas, coming to sattva is much better. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, even rajas is much better than tamas. The
Mm,
mode of passion, in many ways, is much better than mode of ignorance. Like I talk about parenting.
mm,
If a child has a very demanding, expecting parent, that's difficult.
mm.
But in many ways, that is better than having a completely negligent parent or absent
Yes.
parent. So in that sense, I would say that anybody who rises from the mode they are in, even a little step higher,
Mm,
they will make their life better and they will help make the world better.
right.
Even if a significant minority of people rise toward the mode of goodness. Hmm?
Hmm.
We all can help make the world a better place. So, like, say, for example, the issue of our climate change and the environmental consciousness that we are cultivating.
Hmm.
Yes, we may not have the power to make big changes, but we all can become a little more conscious. Maybe spend a little more less fuel, a little more conscious about how much we use electricity, and small things we can take care of. That's very
Right.
helpful, and that can help in small ways. So one, it's not to minimize. If people are more philanthropic, it's valuable. We can't minimize or trivialize that.
Right.
So anyone rising up the mode is good. So but having said this, there is the understanding that ultimately for bhakti, some people say bhakti is exclusive. If you're not practicing bhakti, whatever you're doing is useless. And there are examples given like that. Bhakti is like one, Krishna is one, everything else is zero. Well, that
Yeah.
is true philosophically, no doubt about it. But that is from the eternal perspective, not
Hmm.
from the in this life's perspective. From this life's perspective, whether somebody is sattva or somebody is rajas or somebody is in tamas, that can make a big difference. If the head of
Hmm.
state, if the king or the president or the prime minister, if they are in tamoguna, they are abusive and exploitative or negligent or whatever, they can make their
Hmm.
citizens' life hell. And then Rajas or
Hmm.
Sattva, they're good. So that 1-0 framework is true from the perspective of multiple lifetimes. So
Hmm.
material things, they are temporary ultimately. So from that perspective, they are zero. But within this life, they can make a significant difference. And that is why we see in our tradition, there is an emphasis on cultivating virtues. On Krishna in the 12th chapter, he describes what kind of devotee is dear to him. And it's a fascinating discussion. Not once in the 12th chapter, Krishna says, who is the devotee dear to me? Yomat Bhakta Same Priya. He doesn't say a devotee who chants my names. He doesn't say a devotee who hears Bhagavatam. He doesn't say a devotee who worships my deity. He doesn't say a
Hmm.
devotee who goes on Tirtha Yatra. Now, all
Hmm.
these are important.
Hmm.
But what Krishna says over there, a devotee who is equipoised, a devotee
Hmm.
who is kind, who doesn't agitate others, who is friendly towards everyone, who
Hmm.
is overall living a sattvic life, living a virtuous life. So
Right.
that is also important for Krishna because that is
Hmm.
required for maintaining order in this world. So what happens is, why is then there's somebody say, I'll just live more orderly in this world. Why do I need Krishna at all? That brings us back to the point which we discussed earlier. If we understand that we are eternal beings, if I'm an eternal being, then I will long for eternal life, eternal love, eternal joy. And how can I get the eternal if I'm not even desiring the eternal? If I'm living in the mode of goodness, I'm not yet still desiring the eternal. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
I want to feed the poor people. That's very good. But okay, if you feed poor people, in the Vedic tradition, it said that if you feed poor people by giving charity in your next life, you will never be short of food. You will never go hungry. That's good. At least it will not suffer from hunger in our next life. But that still means that we are going to take birth in this world. We're still in the domain of
Hmm.
temporary world. So why is bhakti required ultimately? Because bhakti means the process for developing our love for the eternal.
Right.
And love for the eternal is essential for attaining the eternal. That's
Hmm.
why without bhakti, just by good deeds, we may help create a better world, relatively speaking. But we won't go to a better world. We won't
Hmm.
go to a better world. We won't go to the eternal world. Because to go to the eternal world, just good deeds in this world are not enough. Because
Hmm.
good deeds don't automatically create love for God. And
Hmm.
for going to the kingdom of God, love for God is needed. For going to the eternal, love for the eternal is needed. So that's why both the ideal situation is bhakti with virtues. If a person is
Hmm.
cultivating sadguna, is having virtues, then they will contribute constructively in this world. And a person who is practicing bhakti, then they will go beyond this world.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm just going to really briefly try to recount that. That sometimes we may in bhakti we may do a 0-1 analysis of all or nothing analysis, And on the other extreme, it would be just be a good person, good Samaritan, and God will take us back. So that might be a slightly Abrahamic understanding that if we are a good person, then somehow the door of heaven will open for us. But
Yes.
you're saying that both are essential. But if you truly want to get through that door to go back to God and the eternal reality, then we absolutely must have a love for that eternal. It's not enough to just be on
Yes.
um, good Samaritan platform, maybe. And
That's
obviously,
true.
Krishna
Yes.
spends a great deal of time in explaining who is very dear to him with all of these beautiful qualities. So it's not in vain. Sooner or later,
Yeah.
probably rise to that. Thank you so much for that, Prabhu. If maybe you could do your beautiful uh, analysis
Summary.
and
Okay.
summary, and maybe bring it all together. There are so many more questions that I would love to ask you, but obviously it's coming to that time. So maybe if we could
Yeah.
just
Exactly.
summarize on how we are meant to be freeing ourselves from this karma
Okay.
today.
Yeah. So, first point broadly we discussed is that
I'm here.
we can't use karma. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Can you
Sorry.
hear me now? Yes. Okay. So the
Mhm.
first point we discussed was that for working responsibly, for acting, karma is not a justification for giving up our dharma. It is not a justification for saying that you are suffering and you keep suffering your own karma. No,
Mm,
when we face suffering in anyone's life, anyone's suffering, we have to see what is my dharma. So dharma is my duty, my contribution, the right thing for me to do. So then, that what does we discuss that? Then what is the point of understanding karma? It is that when somebody is suffering, there could be multiple causes for it. We look at the immediate cause. We are not blind to the immediate cause, but we are not blinded by the immediate cause to everything else.
mhm,
So the bull Dharmaraj, he did look beyond the immediate cause. I don't know what is the bigger cause. But Parikshit Maharaj, he saw the immediate cause and he said, yes, I'm going to deal with this, and I appreciate that you are able to see beyond this also.
mm,
So that's how the compassion can be maintained. And then in that connection, actually, before this itself, we started with how the problem of evil, why small children are suffering, why they will get
mm,
mobbed with bone cancer, something like that. So there we discussed that, okay, we have three options. One is everything is arbitrary, it's just by chance. The problem with that is threefold. First is that nobody functions like that. In a day-to-day life, nobody trains their children. And, you just study, but ultimately what you're going to do in your life is go by chance. Your study is not going to determine your results. No, we don't function like that in life. Even science operates based on cause and effect. And
mm,
this doctrine of everything happening by chance, it doesn't remove our suffering, it only removes the hope that our suffering has for a purpose.
mm,
So this chance is not at all a reasonable explanation. Hmm? What ultimately chance does is it leads to the idea of atheism, which is associated with everything happening by chance. Ultimately, the kind of sufferings that come in our life come by chance. That leads to us being proud of some islands of meaninglessness. On the other
mm,
hand, the theistic worldview, if it is only associated with one lifetime, then also it becomes God is arbitrary. And it's very difficult to worship an arbitrary God. So the third option is that it's like, why is the scoreboard showing such a different score right in the beginning? Is the scoreboard is messed up? It's operating by chance. Is it that the scorekeeper is biased? There's a second innings going on. So the principle of karma actually reconciles, karma spread over multiple lifetimes reconciles a just God with individual accountability.
mm,
And purpose of karma is not post-mortem. You're not meant to blame people for what they did in the past. It's more for prognosis. How can I act right now? So how can I act in a way that I can create a better future? And karma is not an absolute explanation for every problem. You could say that it is, because we don't know the details exactly what karma came when and how it came, what karma came because of what. But it is reasonably empowering. And we
mm,
humans have to cultivate humility in every area of life, that we never get exhaustive knowledge. We have to take major decisions based on finite knowledge. Like, how much is the exact speed of my car? What is the exact nature of the career that I'm choosing? What is the exact nature of the person I am having a relationship, entering into a relationship? We all start with finite knowledge, but the
Mm.
finite knowledge can also be helpful. So karma is, we discuss that perspective. That then I talk about the frames of reference. Karma is, why did a glass fall from my hand? So mental health means that I should be able to place what is happening to me in the most constructive, most empowering framework. So
Mm.
karma is just one more framework. So if a child is crying, the mother should not think that a child is crying because of the past karma. Immediately the mother's framework is, what is my dharma right now? Let me do that. But after taking the child to a doctor, giving treatment, if somehow the child's disease is not going and the child is still crying, then the mother can say, how do I accept this? Okay, maybe there is some karma going on in the past. So
Mm.
that may be the constructive framework. So that requires intelligence for us to use. So any philosophy can be misused. So yes, karma philosophy has been misused to sometimes perpetuate injustice. But then that way, because the technology has been misused for causing destruction and wars and so much casualty. But we don't blame technology for that.
Mm.
Similarly, philosophy is also a resource. So we have to learn to use it properly. Then in that connection, discussed about, we came to the more or less the topic of how do we reduce our karma? Why is God needed? So karma is not ultimately a retributive justice. It's not for retribution. It is more for reformation. And that's
Mm.
why if we align with the Lord's will, then there is no need for us to get cosmic suffering, any kind of suffering. And when we are aligning with the Lord's will, then sometimes we may be exempt from the normal rules of traffic. So the way there is a huge misalignment is vikarma. A reasonable level of misalignment, not following the traffic rules is vikarma. Following the traffic rules but going on one's own self-centered desire, that is karma. Following the traffic rules and then doing the Lord's will. It's like doing working for the government. That is more like a karma. So then we
Mm.
discussed, how does our karma become, how does bhakti help us? That's 5 levels. First is knowledge for making the right choices. Then knowledge about what choices are right. Then
Mm.
purity or willpower or inner strength to make the right choices. Third is tolerance, by knowing that the suffering is temporary, whereas our destiny is ultimately eternal, like the leech
Mm.
example. And fourth is that a positive, meaningful vision of the problem. Why is this coming? And the fifth is minimization by the Lord. So in this way,
Mm.
our karma gets reduced. And then last point which we discussed, I think it came in mostly in the question answers, was that when we are functioning in our day-to-day lives, our focus always has to be on how I cannot just presume that I'm doing God's will. To say
Mm.
I have to learn, so that there's a guna framework is there. We need to cultivate virtues. And if we rise from a lower mode to higher mode, from rajas, tamas means complete misalignment, not even perceiving material reality properly. Rajas means only perceiving material reality. Sattva means perceiving material and spiritual reality. So only when a person is living more or less in sattva can they actually be a recipient and instrument for God's will.
Mm.
Otherwise, they're just doing their own will. And that's why, at one level, for all of us, without bhakti, we cannot be delivered. That's why we need to practice bhakti. At another level, if everybody comes to slightly higher level mode, they all can make their life better and the world slightly better. So, ideal is we are practicing bhakti and we are cultivating virtue, cultivating sattva. Then we can
Right.
contribute constructively in this world and we can also go beyond this world.
Mm.
Thank you very
Wow.
much.
That's- For anyone listening, you will be able to attest to how brilliant that summary was. So thank you so much, Prabhu. We're very very grateful. Please bless us all so that we can understand this wisdom, we can surrender to this path of bhakti, and thereby make our life a little bit more meaningful, purposeful, joyful. And we'll see you
Thank you for
again
your
soon.
thoughtful questions and thank you for this opportunity to share this very profound wisdom.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for listening. Hare Krishna.